if you can define hope, it's the confidence that what will happen is good enough to make the hard things happening now worth it. I think we first recognize that hope is something that is practiced, not preached. And I think that is so important. Our children will believe that the hope is real when they see it real in our lives.
Welcome to Blueprints, a podcast helping parents thrive in today's demanding world. Join Greg and Cody as they explore God's big plan for families and the big job of raising kids.
Welcome to Blueprints. We are on episode 11, where we're going to be talking about the significance of hope and how it builds resiliency in our kids. I'm Cody, and this is
Greg.
Greg, once again.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I actually think we did figure it out until you
I went back,
talking.
I reverted.
Yeah, went back on things. In one of the earlier episodes, you told this really sweet story about how your son was talking to you about Minecraft, and at first you responded like any sane adult does to a conversation about Minecraft, which is, why are you talking to me about Minecraft? This is like, why this game? And it was a really sweet story because you realize like, oh, your son's starting to talk to you.
Yeah, I should just be happy about that.
And let's just face it, like we maybe have like a bias against Minecraft conversations. Like my kids will do that with Zelda, Minecraft, Terraria, like all these other things that I'm like, I don't actually care, but this is nice that you're talking to me about this.
This is information I'm okay not knowing.
Okay, so the other day, I was just going on a walk around the office. I'll do that sometimes. And I heard this guy walking with his wife and their kid. And he was just like babbling on about like the architecture of the things and like how this happened and why they built this way. And I saw the wife's reaction, and it struck me. We never stop talking about Minecraft to people.
Right.
Like,
well, especially our wives.
Like we never stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Like we will find a new Minecraft and talk about it till the day we die.
This is so true. My wife knows so much pointless information about the San Antonio Spurs and the Dallas Cowboys that she could have lived her whole life not knowing and been probably better.
Yeah. And I mainly bring this up to say, wives, moms, we're sorry.
We're sorry, and thank you for your patience with us. Thank you so much. And also,
this is once again another great empathy builder for us as dads when our kids start talking to us about this stuff, that we are just as guilty.
Yeah, your wives hear so much pointless things.
My wife knows more about like the Uncle Tupelo breakup between Jay Farrar and Jeff Tweedy and the launch of Sunvolt and Wilco and like the lore surrounding all these mythic bands that I love so much. Like, she doesn't care, and nor should she.
I wonder what they're thinking about when we're like, are they listening, or
they're
just
probably thinking about all the things we're not doing.
Yeah, that's so true.
To help them while we're talking to them about thing.
Now that I'm done, let me go research more pointless stuff.
Yeah. So anyways, just wanted to bring that up. It was a thought that I had. We're always growing, right?
Yeah.
We're always getting better.
Yeah, we're learning.
Yeah, we're learning. So with that said, we're going to talk about something completely different. Let's go to our question and hear what we're going to be talking about.
Hey, this is Rick from Grand Rapids, Michigan. My daughter just entered high school, and it's been a tough transition. She's struggling with school, friends, and I want her to have strength to face the hard times, but I don't know how to help. How can I give her the strength she needs?
That is such a real question, because I have friends that their kids, as they enter high school, that they're going through this currently as well, and they're racking their brains about what to do. And I'm just so happy, Cody, you have the answer.
Yeah, I have all the answers.
But it's such a real question, and it's such a struggle, because as parents, man, it hurts our hearts when we see our kids struggle, especially in some really big ways, because we want them to be free, we want them to be filled with hope. So, Cody, help us understand the big picture of this episode, and as we start this conversation.
It's a question about resiliency, ultimately. It's like, how can our kids be resilient in the face of challenge?
Okay.
And so when you look at that, I think the big idea that we can look at is the fact that hope is essential for raising resilient kids. Like, hope is connected to resiliency. It's connected to strength. We see this in the way the Bible is laid out, that when God's people were suffering, he reminded them of the hope they have in a better future, in restoration, redemption. Probably one of my favorite examples of that is in Jeremiah 29.
Yeah.
We kind of know the quote, like, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a future hope, which is a really bad rendition of the actual verse.
So many times we take it out of context, but give us the context.
Yeah, and I think that the context actually gives it so much more realistic meaning. At the time, Jeremiah is writing to the exiles that were in Babylon, and so many people around Jeremiah, so many of his peers were basically saying, hey, don't unpack, basically. God's gonna help you. God's gonna get you out of this. Don't worry about it. Like, the suffering's not gonna be bad. It's not gonna be hard, anything like that. And Jeremiah essentially writes them this letter saying, like, hey, these prophets that are saying that are wrong.
Right.
You are gonna be there the rest of your life. He's like, so build homes.
Yeah.
Plant gardens.
Right.
Have kids.
Do good for the city.
Do good for the city, because God has you there for a long time. But don't despair in the midst of this suffering.
Thrive
don't despair in the exile, because I have plans for you to give you a future and a hope. And even though you are in the midst of this suffering, you are a part of something that is bigger that I am doing that will be better.
Yeah, I think about the man on the cross next to Jesus, the robber, and he says, surely you are God. And then Jesus responds with, he's on the cross suffering to death as well, the robber is. And Jesus gives him hope. He says, surely you will see me today in paradise. And then even as the Bible wraps up in Revelation, John's writing to these churches saying, stay faithful, stay hopeful. God is going to take this for his good. Yeah. And it's an encouragement letter rather than a doomsday prophecy, but it's like, hey, stick with it, be faithful. And he's giving these churches that are going through persecution hope.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like, if you can define hope, it's the confidence that what will happen is good enough to make the hard things happening now worth it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And I think that God does this over and over again through the writers, through the prophets, and through the history of his people as they suffer, as they face suffering, because that is something that we will all face in life. We'll all face hardships. It's not over in this.
Yeah. Even like a practical way, like as I see my kid do sports, he loves soccer. And practice, coaches have started making them sprint more and run more. And he comes off like just tired and not having a good time during it. And I'm like, buddy, that's going to help you get better. That's going to make you stronger. That's going to make you run faster and for longer. And it's a lighter side of like what hope can produce in the midst of suffering.
Yeah.
But it's a real life practical way. And we go through these hard situations, but we are hopeful that it'll make us more like Jesus in the end, or more like who God made us to be.
Yeah. And I think that brings us kind of why it matters for our kids. The truth is, without hope, kids will falter on the way to the world.
Right.
And I think we're actually seeing that now. You have so much people, both I think in the Christian space and even outside of that, looking at what's going on with the youth now. And one of the constant themes is hopelessness and despair.
Yeah.
If you want to know, like, I've been working through Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. A lot of it, I think what you can draw from that is this pervasive feeling that the world is going to get worse, or the world is getting worse.
Right.
And that gives people like,
there's
why am I doing any of this stuff?
Right.
Why suffer through this if it's never going to get better?
Yeah.
And we know, because of what the Bible says and because of the faith that we have, that that's just not true.
Yeah.
That despite whatever we're suffering through, that it is not the end. This world does not end in its suffering, but it ends in its renewal.
And that's the beautiful thing about the Christian faith, is that we have a hope that's never ending. We have a hope that will bring life to the fullest, and a hope that's everlasting. And this brings me back to around this time last year. I'm going to get real here. My brother was dying of cancer, and he lives in a different state. So my dad called me. He said, hey, you guys should get here sooner than later. And so my wife and son and I fly down, and it's a very weird, eerie feeling knowing that this is the last time you're ever going to see somebody. And I'm just sitting there and I'm seeing my brother suffering and just an agony and pain. And I'm seeing my 10-year-old son at the time see this.
Yeah.
And it was the last day of our visit. And this just wrecked me. Like, I was just a blubbering, bawling mess the whole time. I mean, it's when you're holding and hugging your brother that's dying of cancer and you're both in tears. It's just so, overwhelmingly emotional. And so I'm telling my son as we go see his uncle for the last time ever, I'm like, hey man, I want you to feel the freedom to feel whatever you're going to feel. If that's sadness, buddy, lean into it. If that's frustration, if it's anger, lean into it. I don't want to make you feel a certain way, but I don't want you to ignore the feelings. Because sharing this with my son, I'm like, but the hope that we have is that we will see your uncle again because of Jesus. Because my brother was following Jesus, we're following Jesus, we're going to see him again. And that's the hope that I wanted to spur my son into, is to not ignore the suffering, but to lean into it.
Yeah.
Because we are hopeful that God will make things all new again.
Yeah. No, well, thanks for sharing that, Greg. And I remember, being with you and talking with you as that was going on. And I think it was an important reminder that the suffering that we feel as parents, oftentimes our kids are feeling it too. Like, I think so often we forget how hard it is to be a kid. And both for the big things that they're facing, like, death and grief and loss and things like that. And also just for the little things like that they face on a regular basis, figuring out what it's like, the little mini griefs that they deal with on a regular basis. It can be fun to be a kid, but it can be really hard to be a kid. And I always come back to this proverb. It's Proverbs 29:18. It says, where there is no vision, the people suffer. Where there's no hope, basically, people falter, people fall apart.
Yeah.
People are not meant to live in despair. And our kids are the same way. And I think that it's a reminder that we get an opportunity to tell them the truth about the world.
Yeah.
To me, that's the great job that we have in this.
Yeah.
We get to tell them the truth about the world, that God is doing something in this world. God is a part of that what we have is not a fake hope. It's not a fiction that we're living out. That God is genuinely, through the work of his Spirit, through Jesus, making all things new. And he's starting that in us, and ultimately will bring it to completion in the new kingdom. And that's a real thing that we get to cling to, and that's a beautiful
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of things that our kids need to know, that the hope that they have is big enough to make the suffering they're going through worth it.
Right.
And I think it matters because hopelessness is dangerous.
Yes. Oh, totally. It could wreck, it could overwhelm. Yeah.
Does incredible harm.
Yeah.
Both to adults and to kids.
Right.
And we get the opportunity to be a part of that. I do this thing called Man Morning with my older two kids. I started it as they kind of got into junior high. And one of the big things that we do the first year of Man Morning is we just talk about, hey, what is the story of the Bible? Like, go through its creation, fall, redemption, restoration.
Yeah.
And note that we might be in the midst of this here, but we're not where the story ends.
Right.
We talk about, how is the story ending? Why does that matter? How does that change the way we understand what we're going through now? And it really makes a difference in their life. It helps them see and process grief in a different way.
So this reminds me of, in the song "Come Thou Fount," it says, "Here I raise my Ebenezer," and Ebenezer is a stone of remembrance that they would put up when something meaningful happened in their life and their journey with God. And I love this metaphor for my life, for hopeless times I go through, such as with my brother, I lean back on the things where I've seen God present, even in the moments of suffering, that I know that God is my Father, that God loves me still. This situation does not remove that. It does not mean I'm forgotten or that God is not with me. And so I fall back on these moments to increase my hope so I could further on the journey with Jesus.
Gosh, I think that's so good. And I think that if we're wondering, what is it that we can do about this? Like, how do we actually build this? How do we look at our kids who are maybe struggling, maybe really deeply struggling, like in our question earlier? How do we give them hope? I think we first recognize that hope is something that is practiced, not preached.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Our children will believe that the hope is real when they see it real in our lives.
Yeah.
We can talk about the hope of Jesus all we want. We can talk about the future. We can talk about all that stuff. But in the midst of our suffering, if they see us just crumble and turn to despair, then they're not going to fully believe that the hope is real. So it's something that's practiced. And that's what I love about the way you were able to even go through that grief, is that even though you felt everything that you feel, you didn't do that without hope.
Yeah, and it's something I wanted to intentionally invite my son into as well, because I went through a season of depression last year, and I would include him on my journey, like, hey, I'm not doing 100% right now. I'm not completely well, but I'm relying on Jesus. I'm relying on you and Mom to care for me and love me through this, because I do want him to see, yes, there will be times of hard times and struggle, but we still can cling to Jesus. We could still cling to the ones we love, because I want him to see that as he grows up, because we've talked about this. There's going to be hard times growing up for a kid. Even as they enter adulthood, they're going to be experiencing hard things, but I want them to remain faithful to Jesus and cling to him in those moments.
Yeah. One of the best things we can do is model hope in those moments, because our kids will see that and kind of take a cue like, oh, wow, they really believe this. This must be true. That can make a difference in my life. I think there's even like little minier hope practices that we can incorporate. Like, I love anything that has any element of delayed gratification, like where it's like, hey, you're looking forward to this, but you're not getting it yet. Like,
so you like suffering? Yeah,
I love making kids suffer deeply. Christmas is a great example. Hey, you asked for this. That's great. You're not getting this right away. Like it's
going to prolong Christmas
later,
in your
birthdays,
house?
Things like that. Yeah, we're
is
like,
Christmas
what
January
you asked
25th?
For this year will happen next year. Or like, hey, you're going to be in creative mode, Minecraft, for a while before you can start attacking those zombies.
Oh man, But it does build endurance. You're right.
No,
You're right.
It does. I think finding little mini hope practices is a great way to kind of build that muscle, and also just to tell the story of the Bible. Lean into these moments. Like, I think you look through the Old Testament. So much of their worship practice was based around festivals of remembrance.
And we've talked about how much you love festivals.
You know how much I love any form of festival. But yeah, they took the time to remember. And it's this ironic twist of like one of the best ways to instill hope in our kids of like, hey, this is coming ahead. It's also look back and remember what God has already done.
Yes, absolutely.
So lean into those things. Like lean into moments where you can remember. I mean, Christmas is an easy one. Easter's an easy one. You can signify moments in your own life and say, hey, I'd like to remember this is when I decided to follow Jesus maybe, or this is when your mom and I decided, hey, we are going to commit to each other and raise a family together. Let's celebrate that together. And we believe that. And because of that, God is making, we can look ahead and say, God is making all things new. And I think we are suffering now under the weight of hopelessness. We are feeling so much effects of that, and it is devastating to our kids. It is very real. But the good news is that despair is not the true story of the world. It's not the reality of what we're living in now.
Right.
And our kids need to know that. And what's crazy is I think when they do know that, you're going to start to see them truly thrive. You're going to start to see them truly like come alive in a way through hard things, through suffering, both the little and the big, because they understand that this is not the end. This might be hard, but it's not the end.
Next week on Blueprints.
It really, honestly, it was like a huge moment. I'm like, we just never stopped talking about Minecraft. Like, we never stopped talking about it. Like,
It's so
I'll be
true.
talking about it till the day I die.
Yeah.
Okay. I should have trusted my gut on that one. Is there a way to just cut me off before I...
Hey, this is Brianne from Portland. Blueprints is a production of Grace-Based Families, a nonprofit that equips ordinary parents to raise extraordinary kids. Grace-Based Families makes free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebasedfamilies.com/join.